Welcome to Let's Talk About Clutter. I'm your host, Margo, and today's topic we're going to be talking about how to declutter without being overwhelmed. I remember when I first decided to declutter, it was about 7 years ago, and I had just gotten divorced, and I was looking around at all of my stuff, and rather his stuff, and I was like, where in the world do I even start? Like, do I just take all of it and, I don't know, throw it on the lawn and burn it? If you've ever been divorced, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there were a lot of things, and, I wanted a new life and I wanted a refreshing start. And, it's incredibly overwhelming because you're just like, you want all of this stuff gone, but you don't know where to start. And then, you fear that you're going to encounter items that maybe were sentimental, that'll make you feel a certain way. And it can be incredibly challenging. And, maybe you're experiencing something like this, or maybe you just, you've accrued a lot of clutter over the years and you don't know where to begin. You don't know how to begin. And it can seem incredibly scary and it can seem stressful. And that's completely okay, right? I mean, you are not alone. I think that for most of us, if we're new to decluttering and we want to begin and rather transform our home into a clean and tidy space, it's okay to experience all of those feelings. So interestingly enough, the best way to get over the feelings of overwhelm is to actually start. I know that might sound kind of crazy because when we begin, the more we declutter, the more we build up motivation, the more we observe our space looking better, the less overwhelmed we actually feel. So while it might seem kind of scary in the beginning, but I assure you that by starting, and I'm going to walk through several ways that you can actually begin your decluttering process today. But the number one thing when it comes to decluttering, I think decluttering only has one rule. And the number one rule is to start. Right? So let's talk about how you can kind of begin and start without feeling overwhelmed. And I've worked with many clients specifically on this. It's kind of getting over the hump of starting. And I can tell you that once you start, you're not going to want to stop. So how do you begin decluttering when you're feeling overwhelmed? So the first thing that you want to do is you want to start small. You want to kind of get that quick win. I know that some of you might look around your space and there's so much clutter and you're kind of like, what do I do? How do I start? What do I tackle first, second, third? And I think that what many of you need is a quick, small win. So yes, there's a lot of clutter. Yes, you look around your space and there's just so much stuff and it's incredibly overwhelming. Start small, right? Identify a small section, not a room. That's not starting small, ladies. Identify a small section, right? I highly recommend starting with your underwear and sock drawer because, well, it's easy. Chances are a lot of the items in there you will just need to throw out. And, start small. Start with a drawer. Don't start with a closet. Don't start with an entire kitchen. That, my friends, is incredibly overwhelming. But begin small. Start with a drawer, start with maybe some beauty products, start with makeup. If you want to start with cleaning supplies, that's okay as well. But start small. So how do you declutter, right? Even when you're starting small, how would you go about decluttering a drawer? So you would take everything out of that drawer, dump it on your bed, the couch, the floor, wherever you want. I don't recommend the floor because if you're decluttering the underwear drawer, well, we don't want it getting dirty. Maybe that's not the best place to dump it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take everything out and then you're going to, I don't know, maybe put on some good music or turn on some Netflix and you're going to go through every single item. So, if it's your underwear and your socks, you're going to go through every underwear you own and you're going to decide what to keep and what to toss. Keep the underwear and socks that you wear all the time. So the best way to assess that is to ask yourself, has it been in the laundry in the last few weeks? And if the answer is yes, then it is something that you wear and you use, right? Get rid of any underwear that has holes in it, that's stretched out. You know what I'm talking about. We've all had those moments where we go to use the bathroom at work, we look down at our underwear and we're like, oh crap, it has a hole in it, right? It's time to let those go. Ladies, I understand those panties might be your favorite and they might be incredibly comfortable, but I highly discourage you from wearing things that have holes in it. So let go of the underwear with holes. Let go of the underwear for your fantasy self, right? Maybe you're somebody that ideally would love nothing more than to wear thongs, but you don't because you don't feel comfortable in them. So you're holding on to items for what we call your fantasy self. Only keep the items that you actually wear. Same thing goes for socks. If they're stretched out, dingy, old, gross looking, if you're embarrassed at the thought of taking off your shoes in front of other people, chances are those socks need to go. Also, just an FYI, don't hold on to socks that don't have a pair. Okay, that sock is not going to magically reappear. And even if it does, take the hit. So declutter, right? Start small, declutter that drawer, and most importantly, celebrate your wins. Celebrate that accomplishment that you got over the hump of feeling overwhelmed and that you actually sat down and you decided to declutter. If you're somebody who procrastinates, maybe you know you need to declutter, but you're just like, maybe tomorrow, and that tomorrow just never comes, and you'd rather do anything but actually sit down and declutter. I find that in my experience, setting an alarm on your Alexa to go off to prompt you to start decluttering works beautifully. And also keep in mind, when we're starting small, you shouldn't be decluttering for an hour. Start with 10 minutes. Start with 15 minutes. The most important thing is that you actually start. And ladies, it feels incredibly good when you declutter that underwear drawer. So going back to that, once you've decluttered, don't forget to clean out the drawer. You don't want to put your underwear and your socks or anything really into a messy, dirty drawer. Wipe it down and then put the stuff back in. It's going to feel fantastic. I promise you, you are not going to feel overwhelmed. Actually, I highly encourage that as you're listening to this podcast, you sit down with me and you start decluttering your sock and underwear drawer. I find that what really works well is, a lot of times we feel incredibly overwhelmed because we're not sure what we're doing, right? There's no structure, there's no system. We're kind of like, okay, what's next, right? And, not having a plan, not having a clear direction, not having goals, that in itself can be really overwhelming. I know that for me, I'm a time management and organization fanatic. I'm not going to lie. If I don't have a to-do list, if I don't have a clear vision for something, I become incredibly overwhelmed. My anxiety goes through the roof. My stress levels are just crazy. So, having a very, very simple plan can really help decrease those feelings of overwhelm. And when we talk about plan, I don't mean like a 5-page dossier of what you're going to do for the next 6 months. Even creating that, even talking about it makes me overwhelmed right now. But think about yourselves, when you're at work or whatnot, having that daily to-do list, whether it's on paper or in your phone or, in the office, maybe in Outlook. But when you have a clear agenda for what you're going to do, whether you're working on a project or just daily tasks, it tends to alleviate feelings of stress and overwhelm and anxiety. And decluttering your home is no different. So very, very simply, just create maybe a mini decluttering plan. So what you do is you can start off by walking around your home. And you're going to jot down all the areas of clutter. Now, make sure that you're not just writing down my entire home has a ton of clutter. That's not what I'm talking about here. That is incredibly vague and will provide absolutely no direction for you. So I really don't recommend it. What I'm talking about is writing down specifically areas of clutter. So the more specific you can get, the better it is. So for example, the medicine cabinet, the cabinet underneath the bathroom sink, the cabinet underneath the kitchen sink, dresser drawers, your closet, your kid's closet, your partner's closet, the pantry, right? The nightstand. Really kind of invest the time, walk around your home and jot down areas of clutter. So you're now going to have a list of all the spaces in your home that have clutter. And then what you're going to do is you're going to simply prioritize them in order of importance. So for example, you can put, ones next to all of the areas that are high priority for you to declutter, and then twos, threes, fours, and fives. Another way that you can do this is you could just label them in order of importance. The kitchen countertop is number 1, the kitchen cabinets are number 2, so on and so forth, right? Whatever feels right for you. The thing, ladies, about decluttering is that oftentimes we consume a lot of content, right? YouTube, podcasts. Thanks for listening, by the way. We read a lot of blog posts and subscribe to a bunch of newsletters of the perfect methodology to declutter our homes. But the reality, and in my experience, is that decluttering has to suit you. It has to fit your lifestyle, your routines. It has to work for you and your family. So oftentimes it's really about adapting different strategies, and then through, like anything else in life, really, through trial and error. You try one decluttering methodology, you're like, oh, Swedish death cleaning, right? Which is incredibly extreme. And I can do a podcast on Swedish death cleaning. So you might be like, Swedish death cleaning, awesome, totally works for me, right? Versus somebody else would be like, Swedish death cleaning is incredibly extreme. The fact that I am decluttering my home and pondering death someday doesn't sit well with me, and it's incredibly morbid, and I just don't like it. So there are a lot of different methodologies for how you can declutter your space, but typically there's no one shoe fits all, right? It's really trial and error. Decluttering in different ways, and then figuring out what works for you. So once you create your decluttering plan and you know exactly what areas in your home you're going to be decluttering, and then you prioritize them in order of importance, and then all you simply do is you pencil it in on your daily or weekly to-do list. Now, again, if you're new to decluttering, I highly discourage you from investing an hour to 2 hours decluttering to start, because what happens is we get incredibly excited in the beginning, we tackle decluttering, and then our excitement fades out. It's better if you realistically evaluate your schedule and incorporate decluttering into your weekly to-do list. So starting small is number 1. Creating a decluttering plan is number 2. The next thing that you might want to do is, a lot of times we lose momentum after we start decluttering. And one of the main reasons that a lot of clients tell me that they lose momentum is because they're not really seeing an impact. So it feels like they're decluttering and decluttering and decluttering, but their home still appears incredibly cluttered. So a way to overcome that is to tackle high traffic areas first, right? So these areas are your eyesores. These are the areas that drive you absolutely nuts. These are also the areas that are going to be most rewarding when you've decluttered. So when I say high traffic areas, I'm saying things like your kitchen, right? For a lot of us, kitchens are areas in our home where we spend a ton of time, and they tend to get really, really, really cluttered. There is nothing more rewarding for us than to have a clean and tidy kitchen countertop or dining room table. Maybe start with tackling high traffic areas. So declutter your kitchen countertop, right? Start there. Declutter maybe your table if you have a kitchen table in there. Declutter your pantry. A lot of times we might want to declutter our entryway, right? Because our entryway is the first thing that we see when we come home, and especially if we had a stressful day, the last thing we want to do when we walk into our home is see a very messy entryway. I don't know about you all, but that drives me completely nuts, especially when my daughter will come in and just randomly drop her shoes anywhere, her coat on the floor. It's like she's literally stripping in the entryway as she's walking to her room. Drives me absolutely bananas. So I like to keep my entryway clean and tidy. A lot of times when we declutter these high traffic areas, because we instantly see results, it motivates us to continue, right? It hypes us up. We walk into our home, our entryway is clutter free, our kitchen is clutter free, and we're like, heck, I want this in the rest of my home. Another thing you might want to start with, right, when we're beginning our decluttering journey, and oftentimes we feel overwhelmed because we lack direction, a great place to start is to eliminate surface clutter. I personally despise surface clutter. Surface clutter makes our homes appear more cluttered than they actually are. Surface clutter is a huge trigger for feelings of overwhelm, stress, and anxiety, because it's, surface clutter is visual clutter. I mean, it's out there. It's staring at us in the face, telling us, oof, you are not maintaining a clean and tidy home. And that, ladies, sucks. I feel like surface clutter is like a constant reminder that we don't have our stuff together in our homes. So surfaces are magnets for junk. They just are. And I've found that the more surfaces we have in our homes, the more surface clutter accrues. So funny story, many years ago, we used to have a coffee table, and that coffee in the living room, and the coffee table would constantly attract surface clutter, magazines, papers, cups, plates, random knickknacks. It would just drive me absolutely nuts. And it's like, I felt like I was a slave to this coffee table, constantly cleaning it, right? So here's what I did. The solution was I just got rid of the coffee table. I'm not even joking. And it worked. No coffee table means no surface clutter. So you might have to get that extreme, right? You might want to think about eliminating unnecessary surfaces completely. So I do not miss the coffee table in my living room. Quite the opposite. I'm actually very happy we no longer have one, because it gives me space to do yoga and meditation. Maybe prioritize, once you've made your decluttering plan, maybe prioritizing surface clutter is a great place to start. I actually really love something called the 60-second purge for this, and you're probably going to hear me talk about it a lot. It is my favorite decluttering methodology. And what I do, and what I encourage a lot of my clients to do, is to grab a box or a bin and just walk around your space, swiping things off of surfaces into that box or that bin. It is a great, quick, easy win. Give it a try, right? It's called the 60-second purge. Give it a try, walk around your space, and get rid of surface clutter. The next tip for decreasing the feelings of overwhelm when it comes to decluttering is to keep it short. Set an alarm for 10 to 15 minutes and declutter one section, one space of your home, right? Keep it very, very short in the beginning. The longer it is, the more overwhelmed you're going to be. So keep it very, very short, 10 to 15 minutes. What happens is this will actually motivate you to do it again the next day, because it didn't feel as bad as you thought it was going to be. So I like to declutter in sprints, not marathons. To be honest, marathons leave me exhausted. And I notice that if I'm penciling decluttering for like 60 minutes, I naturally halfway through will start slacking because I'm getting tired. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I doubt it. But we tend to, when we're doing something longer than we want to, right? Because at the end of the day, nobody's like, I'm so excited to declutter. Yes, I can't wait. Tomorrow is the day I will be decluttering, says nobody ever. So when we tend to do something that we don't necessarily love or enjoy, and it kind of sucks for the lack of a better word, when we do it for a very, very long time, we start to not do it to the best of our abilities. So I highly encourage you, especially if you're somebody who feels overwhelmed before you begin decluttering, during decluttering, I highly encourage you to keep it short. Next, don't force it. So I did mention that the only way to achieve a clutter-free, clean, and tidy home is to start, right? You got to start decluttering. But there are naturally going to be days where you just don't feel like it. Give yourself some grace. It's okay. Just don't declutter on that day. A lot of times we force ourselves to do things that we don't want to do. We feel guilty because our home is filled with clutter and we want it to look clean and tidy as quickly as possible. And oftentimes we force it. And I don't want you to do that. Don't force it, okay? On days where you just don't feel like it, on days where you're stressed, you had a bad day at work, your kids are driving you nuts, your partner's driving you nuts, maybe you got a parking ticket, you were stuck in traffic, whatever it is. On days like that, just don't declutter. There's always tomorrow. And lastly, what really, 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 really works, this is probably the most important tip, right? The most valuable tip for decluttering and kind of avoiding the feelings of overwhelm is to have fun. Make decluttering an enjoyable experience, right? When we think about, a lot of times we procrastinate because when we think about decluttering or cleaning or organizing, it's a chore, it's boring, it's stressful, it takes too long, like we'd rather be doing anything but that, right? We tend to procrastinate things that we don't want to do or don't know how to do. But decluttering can actually be incredibly fun, okay? When you declutter, put on some great music. When you declutter, right? I love pairing an activity that I don't love with something I enjoy doing, right? So I pair one habit with another. So for example, when I'm cleaning or when I'm decluttering, I'll take that as an opportunity to get on the phone with a friend and catch up. I will, binge watch a Netflix show. I will turn on music, right? Figure out how you can pair an activity that you do enjoy to do while you declutter. I mean, think about it, ladies. What can be more fun than taking a bunch of clutter, putting it on your couch, turning on the TV, and, catching up on a show? By the way, let me know, what show are you currently watching on Netflix? Ladies, everything is about perspective, and how we look at things will dictate if we do them or if we procrastinate. So find a way to enjoy decluttering. Maybe you have a decluttering buddy and you and her or him can get on the phone with each other or on FaceTime, right? And declutter together. Find creative ways to make decluttering fun. If you're decluttering with your kids, by the way, you can always turn decluttering into a game. So one game that I absolutely love is when you tell your kiddo 60 seconds on the clock, right? You turn on your stopwatch and alarm and you tell them that they have 60 seconds to grab as many items from their room as they possibly can that they no longer want. So get creative. Have fun with it. These are some of the tips that I've found have really helped a lot of women begin their decluttering journey and achieve a clutter-free space. I do want to end this by saying that what I've noticed, what makes some people successful in achieving a clean and tidy home over others is their why. It's really having a strong why for why you want a clean and tidy home. How will achieving a clutter-free space improve your life? The more specific you can get, the more likely you are to actually get there. So, for example, I want a clutter-free home because it will save me time on cleaning. And if it saves me time on cleaning, that means that I no longer have to clean on Sundays for 2 to 3 hours. And instead, I can spend more time with my children. Instead, we can have adventure Sundays. Instead, we have more quality time. And if I have more quality time with my kids and my family, what does that mean, right? That makes me feel like a better mother. That makes me feel like a better parent. I now focus on things that truly matter and create beautiful memories with my family, right? That's just one example. So I highly encourage you to think about your why. Don't just say that you want a clean and tidy home. What will a clean and tidy home? What will life look like? How will your life improve once you've achieved that clean and tidy space, right? Always remember the future you will thank you. And while it might seem incredibly overwhelming right now, fast forward a year from now, you're going to be like, oh my God, why didn't I do this sooner? Good luck on your decluttering journey, and always remember to be good to yourselves.